When I arrived at our family trip meeting spot, no one was there except my 5 nieces and nephews. My sister sent me an email saying we're going to Hawaii. Take care of our 5 kids. I called CPS and Coot. All contact when they return to that airport. My name is Isabella Hansen, and I'm 30 years old. I am a director at PO Corporation. I've poured my passion into my work, steadily climbing the career ladder. As I traced the rim of my coffee cup, I gazed out at the Manhattan skyline through the large glass window of view that was the result of 10 years of dedicated work to others. My life might seem like a picture of success. However, behind my success were sacrifices I've made since childhood. I am the eldest of 3 sisters, with Jocelyn 2 years and Linda 6 years younger. Both of my parents worked, always busy with their jobs and managing household chores. It was just after Linda was born when my mother said, "Isabella, can you watch Linda for a bit? I'll be right back." That AIT turned into 3 hours, and I continued to soothe the crying Linda. When my mother returned, she said, "You're such a lifesaver, Isabella. Not many could do what you do." That was the beginning. Soon after, for every small errand like shopping or dining with friends, my mother started leaving my sisters with me while my friends played outside after school. I was at home taking care of 4-year-old Jocelyn and baby Linda. One summer day when I was 12 years old, my parents called to say they would be late from work with nothing in the fridge. I opened a cookbook and decided to make pasta sauce from scratch. I stood in the kitchen clumsily chopping tomatoes, crushing garlic, and dicing leftover vegetables. Considering it was my first time cooking, I thought it turned out pretty well. My parents were delighted and said, "Isabella, we'll count on you for dinner from now on." From that day, preparing weekday dinners became my special job, and I started making dinner before doing homework. As I turned down more invitations to play Isabella, "is busy" became synonymous with me. By the time I was 16 years old, I was managing most of the household chores. Mornings involved waking up my sisters, preparing breakfast, and then off to school. Evenings were for shopping, and dinner prep. Weekends meant laundry and cleaning. One day I expressed my desire to audition for the school play. My mother looked puzzled and said, "But the house can't function without you," my father added. "Isabella is so responsible, she would prioritize family over anything else." That night, I quietly cried in my room like many other dreams. My acting ambitions were sidelined for the needs of my family. I vividly remember the spring break of my 18th year, for the last spring break of high school, and had planned a trip to Miami Beach with friends, saving money from a part-time job. For 6 months, it was to be my first trip, just with friends. My suitcase was packed, and the plane ticket was ready. On the eve of departure, my parents suddenly appeared in the living room. "Isabella, we need to talk," my mother said with a regretful look. My father continued, "We have to go to Texas unexpectedly tomorrow because your grandmother, who was supposed to watch Linda and Jocelyn, fell ill. Can you take care of your sisters?" My heart sank. "But I'm supposed to go to Miami tomorrow. I've been planning this for 6 months." "I know, but it's an emergency," my mother explained. "You're the only one we can rely on." "What about Grandpa?" I asked, feeling hopeful he and working. She replied, "But my ticket will cover the cancellation fee," my father interjected. "We trust you with Jocelyn and Linda. They rely on you, and we know you can handle it." Ultimately, my Miami dream was crushed as I received fun photos and videos from my friends. I spent the weekend looking after 16 years old Jocelyn and 12 years old Linda, and the weekend my parents were supposed to be away ultimately extended to a whole week later. Learned that my parents were actually at a couples retreat. "Sometimes we need time for ourselves," my mother said when I confronted her with the truth. It was a time built on my sacrifices in college. I managed to get scholarships and continued working part-time to cover some of my tuition fees. However, the situation changed when I learned that Jocelyn had been accepted into a prestigious private university. "Isabella, fantastic news," my mother excitedly announced over the phone. "Jocelyn got into Princeton. Congratulations." I sincerely responded. Jocelyn was always studious, but there's one problem. My mother continued, "The tuition, and with Linda coming up, it's a bit tough for us alone." I immediately understood. "Mom, I don't have that kind of money, but you're receiving a scholarship, right? Plus you work part-time. That's for my tuition. Jocelyn should work part-time too." "Isabella, Princeton is an opportunity for Jocelyn. Unfortunately, she didn't receive a scholarship, and she wants her own to focus on her studies." My father joined the conversation. "Shouldn't we help each other as a family?" In the end, I took on an additional part-time job. I worked at a campus cafe in the morning And as a waitress at a bar at night between classes and work, I was constantly running around working from morning till night. So on weekends, I had no social life, and I was always short on sleep. This went on for 2 years. Part of my income went towards Joss tuition, and the rest covered my own tuition and living expenses on the day of my college graduation. I felt a mix of emotions. My college years were a struggle getting through with sleep deprivation and juggling 2 jobs. Only my father attended the graduation ceremony. My mother was with Jocelyn at a university event, and Linda was busy with her final exams. Sorry, Isabella, but you'll be fine, right? You're always so independent, my father said. I started my career at PAL Corporation as an analyst among the 30 new. I worked the longest. Hours, I was the first to arrive in the morning and the last to leave at night. This work ethic caught my boss's attention, and I was promoted to lead analyst after 2 years. 5 years later, I became a manager, and now I lead a team of 15 as a director. Whenever there was a major family event, I was called upon when Jocelyn married Scott, and at 23 years old, I managed all aspects of the wedding from its planning to execution. Isabella, you're so organized, my mother said. 2 weeks before the wedding, was buried in a major project deadline. I worked late into the night every day and gave up weekends to prepare for the wedding. On the day of the ceremony, I served as the maid of honor while solving every issue from catering mishaps to guest problems. Linda married her college boyfriend Brian when she was 22 years old. He was a young lawyer, and they soon bought a suburban house. I also ran around behind the scenes at their wedding. A year after their marriage, Linda announced her pregnancy when Alex was born. I visited their house every weekend to help with household chores and childcare. Isabella, we don't know what we would do without you, she said, but she never mentioned how this impacted my own social life. In rest, Jocelyn's marriage became complicated after the birth of their second child. Her relationship with Scott worsened, and they got divorced when she was 28 years old. Scott was never home due to his long work hours, and I was left to handle the childcare alone. Jocelyn explained tearfully after the divorce. Jocelyn, who had been a stay-at-home mom, faced financial difficulties. She moved back in with our parents, but it was a significant financial strain on them. I helped with the household expenses every month. It's only temporary. I'll get back on my feet soon, Jocelyn assured me, but that temporary situation has lasted over 2 years now. Linda's family life seems successful on the surface. However, she and Brian, both working full-time, often relied on me to care for their 2 children on weekends. The kids called me Auntie Isabella and were fond of me. You're so good with kids, was the excuse that took away my free weekends. Yet my family never seemed to sacrifice anything for me. Last year on my birthday, I sat alone in my apartment. My phone didn't ring once. My mother was at a party with friends. Jocelyn was on a date with her new boyfriend, and Linda was on a weekend trip with her husband. Happy birthday, Isabel, I toasted to myself and poured a glass of wine. The next day, I received a belated text from my mother. Happy birthday, Isabella. Sorry I couldn't get in touch. We were busy, by the way. Can you look after Alex and Christina next week? Linda and Brian need a little break. This is how I never had the time or energy to develop a romantic relationship. I did date a few men, but many relationships ended with I have to take care of my sister's kids this weekend. It's my niece's birthday party, or there's a family emergency. Isabella, my train of thought was interrupted, and I turned to see my assistant Tiffany standing at the door. It's a call from Linda. Will you take it? I nodded while organizing a pile of documents. Thanks. I'll take it, Isabella. How are you? Linda's voice came through the speaker. Do you have a moment of course, I replied, pushing aside a report. What's up? I was only half listening, still reviewing the quarterly figures. Mom's turning 60 years old in 2 months. It's her birthday, remember? Linda said excitedly. And Mom is retiring from her job. Right, I want to plan a special trip to commemorate it. We all want to chip in for it, but Jocelyn doesn't have the means. I also have educational expenses and a home mortgage, so I can only contribute a little. That caught my attention. How much are we talking about? I almost spit out my coffee when Linda replied, the amount was equivalent to 3 months of my salary. I know it's a lot, Linda quickly added, but it's for Mom. That's fine. I hesitated for a moment, but then stopped myself from thinking too much as usual. I'll send the money right now. I said this as I opened my bank app. Thank you. Linda's voice was filled with relief. Oh, and one more thing. I need you to take a week off Warp for the celebration. It's a special plan. I'll keep the destination a surprise until the day we leave Jocelyn. And I have everything arranged, and make sure you don't schedule any work during that time. I got it. After that conversation, weeks flew by with meetings and deadlines. I occasionally wondered what my sisters were planning with that money. But whenever I asked, I only got vague responses. Work took priority, and Mom's birthday celebration was pushed to the back of my mind. Then the designated day arrived. I closed an important deal, leaving the office with a feeling of comfortable exhaustion. It was finally time for Mom's birthday celebration. According to messages from my sisters, we were to gather at our parents' house and leave from there. I loaded my carry-on into the car and headed to my parents' home. When I arrived, I noticed several familiar cars parked on the street. I pressed the doorbell lightly, expecting my dad to open the door as usual. But instead, Jocelyn's 5-year-old son, Matt, appeared. "Auntie Isabella," he exclaimed joyfully. "Hello, Matt." I smiled, though I was a bit confused. "Where's Mom?" "Everyone went out," he answered nonchalantly. I entered the house and made my way to the living room, where I found 3 kids scattered about Linda's baby. Christina was sleeping on a playmat, and her 3-year-old son, Alex, was playing with blocks. Jocelyn's daughter, Hannah, was drawing. However, no adults were in sight. "Where did everyone go?" I asked Matt. He shrugged. "I don't know. Grandpa said that Auntie Isabella would be here soon, and to stay quiet until then." I hurried to the dining table. There was an envelope there with my name on it. With trembling hands, I opened it and found the following note: "Isabella, we've already left for a week at Sunnyside Resort. This is our adults-only trip after years tied down by childcare. We finally get to enjoy some freedom. Without the kids, we stock the fridge with food for the kids. The emergency contact list is on the kitchen counter. Make sure Alex gets his medicine at 4:00 p.m. Don't worry, we'll take lots of pictures to show you when we get back, enjoying adult conversations and cocktails. Love, Mom, P." As Jocelyn checked the resort's babysitting service, but it was fully booked. "The kids are comfortable with you, and this was the best way. Don't take it the wrong way. Just do your best for us, as usual. There was no other way." I read the note again. In disbelief, they had really left me behind, without consulting me, without my consent, and with my own money. I took out my phone and called Mom. Immediately, it went to voicemail. I tried Linda, then Jocelyn, with the same result. Finally, after several attempts, Linda answered. "Hey, Isabella," she sounded hesitant. "Have you arrived at the house?" "Linda, what is this?" I asked, struggling to keep my anger in check. "You left me behind." "Listen, Isabella," she became defensive. "It wasn't my idea." Mom said, "Isabella is always so responsible and reliable. She'll understand." I didn't agree to look after the kids. I said I was looking forward to this trip too. "But you get along with the kids," Linda excused. "And since you're single and don't have children, you don't really need a vacation like this, do you? We just want to enjoy some adult time. We've been tied down by the kids for so long. Don't we deserve a little break?" Her words broke something inside me. "Listen, I'll call a professional babysitter right now. That way I can catch a flight and join you." "That won't work," Linda exclaimed. "We can't leave the kids with someone they don't know. Alex gets anxious around strangers, and Christina is still a baby. Honestly, we just want some time away from the kids. Isabella, please, can you watch them for us, just like you always do, just like I always do?" I repeated, feeling the anger rise. "Yes, you're always so dependable. Ever since you were little," she said nonchalantly. "You've always done everything for us." Something clicked in my head. "For everyone," I said in a low voice. "Yes, always for everyone, but Linda, this time it's different. I won't do it." "What do you mean?" Panic tinged Linda's voice. "I'm calling a professional," I stated firmly, "for the children's safety." "Professional? What do you mean, Isabella?" "Stop." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking, but my next steps were clear. I called the police and explained the situation. Next, I contacted the National Child Abuse Hotline. They promised immediate action. After that, I sent the same text message to the entire family. The children have been left unsupervised. I have reported this to the police and Child Protective Services. I suggest you come back immediately within minutes. My phone began to ring. I ignored it instead. I sat down in the living room and began playing with the kids, ensuring they did not feel anxious. About an hour later, a police car arrived at the house. 2 officers entered and began assessing the situation. 30 minutes later, a social worker from Child Protective Services also arrived. I explained everything to them. As the sun began to set, the front door burst open and my panicked mother rushed in behind her. "Were Linda, Jocelyn, and the rest of the family, Isabella?" my mother exclaimed. "What have you done?" An officer stepped forward and asked. "Are you the guardian of these children?" My mother, cheeks flushed, replied, "Yes, I'm their grandmother. What happened?" The situation of minors being left without proper supervision was discovered by M. Johansson, who appropriately reported it to the authorities, the officer stated sternly. But my mother faltered. Isabella was supposed to take care of them. She agreed. No. Mom, I said quietly, I didn't hear about it. Nor did I agree. You all just assumed the social workers stepped forward and requested identification from all the adults. They were then asked to accompany the police to the station after hours of questioning and explanations. The police contacted me to clarify the situation. Meanwhile, I stayed at the house with the children. Ultimately, my parents and sisters were charged with child neglect. The children were temporarily placed under my supervision. The family was enveloped in shock and shame. They returned from the police late that night. The next morning, I gathered everyone in the living room. The children were playing in another room. I have always said yes, I began calmly. Even when I was tired from work, even when I had important meetings, I always helped you. But this time you crossed a line. You took my time, my money, and my dignity. But Isabella, my mother said through tears, you've always done everything for the family. That's the problem, Mom. Said you've forgotten that I have a life of my own, my choices, my hopes, my dreams. I love my family, but I'm done being taken advantage of. Don't you like the kids? Jocelyn asked in a soft voice. Of course I love them, I replied. But loving them and being forced to take care of them for a week without prior consultation, while the rest of the family goes on a vacation with my money, are completely different issues. Silence took over the room. I stated firmly, you all need to face the consequences of your actions. I have sacrificed for you for many years. I've had enough, Isabella, my mother exclaimed in shock. We raised you, yes. You raised me, I said quietly. I am grateful for that, but that doesn't give you the right to use me indefinitely from childhood. I was the one who looked after Linda and Jocelyn. When we got home from school while they played with friends, I was the one preparing dinner and helping with homework. That's because you were the eldest. My father excused. No, I shook my head. It's because you took advantage of me. You knew I was responsible and wouldn't say no, but that doesn't mean we're not family. Jocelyn exclaimed. Family, I laughed. Being family means it's okay to go on a trip with the money I provided without my consent and leave me to look after 4 kids. Is it okay to take for granted all the sacrifices I've made for the family? The family fell silent. Anger, sadness, and fear appeared on their faces. What should we do now? Lind asked in a low voice. That's for you to figure out. I said I'm going to live my own life. A year had passed after the intervention of the police and Child Protective Services. My family paid a significant price. My parents were charged with child neglect and were ordered to do community service. Linda and Brian and Jocelyn faced restricted custody of their children with supervised visits and mandatory parenting classes. My father's business partner terminated their contracts out of fear of scandal, and our family's financial situation rapidly deteriorated. I had cut off contact with all of them. At first, tearful calls from my mother and angry messages from Linda and Jocelyn flooded in. They claimed I had overreacted and accused me of betraying the family. However, those gradually subsided. One rainy afternoon, there was a knock at my office door. There's someone here to see you, Tiffany said. It's your mother. I took a deep breath. Let her in. My mother had aged, her shoulders slumped. Gone. Was her once confident posture replaced by weariness and a sense of defeat, Isabella? She said in a small voice. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want? I asked calmly. I came to apologize, she said, and to ask for help. What kind of help? We're on the verge of bankruptcy, she confessed, holding back tears. Your father has lost his job, and my retirement funds were drained by legal fees. Linda and Jocelyn are struggling to regain custody of their children, and I need a loan, she finally said. Help us. I looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. In the past, I would have immediately opened my wallet and helped my family. As I always had, Mom, I said slowly. I drew a clear boundary a year ago. You took advantage of me and took my kindness for granted. You never considered my feelings or my life. But you're our daughter. My mother raised her voice. Isn't family supposed to help each other? True family respects and supports each other. I quietly replied. You treated me merely as a resource. That is not love. My mother began to cry, her shoulders shaking. Then what should I do? Solve it yourselves, I said as adults. She looked at me with a look of despair. You were never this cold. I've changed, Mom. I smiled. I finally learned to value myself after she left. I reflected deeply that incident made me reassess my life. Work remained important, but I also built new friendships and began to cherish my own time. I started volunteering, truly reaching out to those in need. Sometimes I think about my family. I wonder how they are doing, especially the children, but the realization from that night remains unchanged. Saying no can be the most powerful form of self-affirmation. Protecting my boundaries is the deepest form of self-love. My desk is piled with documents for a new project. This weekend, I have a trip to Europe planned with friends. I no longer need to adjust my life to someone else's schedule. I am living at my own pace, and now this freedom is what I value most.